the season finale of the Court O Coaching Chronicles. I'm Alex, joined as always by Nathan. Nathan, we did it once again. We're here at the end of another season of really fun and awesome content that I'm excited that we get to bring to all the viewers out there. How's it going, Nathan? And congratulations on making it here. You graduated yet you're another year.
Yeah, we finished this season. Unfortunately, like season 2, we kind of tapered off because of everything, but we made it through this one.
Yeah, totally. So for today's episode, we're got a little bit of a hybrid episode here where we're going to give you some quick snippets of gameplay. Nathan's brought 2 games to the table here. We're just going to look at just like the gameplay episode from last week, but it's going to be a little bit shorter. We're not going to go through full games. And then Nathan, which is really cool, what he brought to the table for us is he brought us some takeaways from the season, but also, which I think is really smart of him, he brought some takeaways from previous seasons, not just to remind himself and remind the viewer, but we're going to see if he, kept true to his word of abiding by those lessons and see if he's still putting those into practice in his draft today. So I'm excited for that. And what do you say we just start off by jumping into the gameplay here?
Yeah, sure. Why don't I start by giving a little bit of background on this deck, just so people have context.
Sounds good.
This is a stereotypical green-white deck. There's no real bombs in it. I think the top end is like a green dragon, which I know is not stellar, but the highlight is really a significant amount of life gain and then 5 celestial unicorns. So the game plan is how big can we make these unicorns and jam through. I think there's a plate armor in there as well, which we'll highlight here today. I just have 2 games here that... at the beginning, there's a lot of, in my opinion, interesting decisions of which cards should be played when and sequencing. And, this is not my forte, and this is your forte, so I wanted to run through these with you to see, I know what Nathan did. What would Alex do?
Sweet, yeah. And, just like usual, I'm going to scrub through this. Let me know if there's any point where you're like, oh, let's talk about this situation. I'm sure every turn here will have some interesting stuff, but you're the question asker here.
All right, so this is the first one. They play the 2/1 Investigator. You hear something on watch, Portable Hole and Dawnbringer Cleric. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure which one to play. I know that Dawnbringer Cleric, lines up well for blocks. I didn't want to, use one of these actually are my only 3 removal spells in the deck, I believe, so I didn't want to use one of those too early. What would Alex do?
Yeah, pretty interesting. So you said you had a decent amount of life gain, which means this Dawnbringer Cleric isn't like, critical for triggering your life gain payoffs or your unicorns and stuff. So it's not like I feel terrible about playing it here. I guess the question I'd have for myself is how important is it to get this Arcane Investigator off the table, right? And there's 2 things I'd be considering, right? One, how relevant is the power and toughness here? Like, do I think that's going to impede on my ability to attack my opponent? And 2, how important is the ability here, right? The 6 mana, draw a card, or look at some cards and put one in your hand. I think that because you don't have the most beatdown hand in the world, like you're not aggressive 2-drop, aggressive 3-drop, you're more like, you got 2 removal spells, 3 removal spells, and like some 2 slowish creatures. I think this Arcane Investigator is actually going to be a problem at some point, right? You're probably going to have to deal with it at some point. And with Portable Hole being the only, reach out and kill that thing removal spell in your deck, probably, just, based on what you're saying, I think I might have to use this Portable Hole on the Investigator. And do I want to do that now? Or can I wait? I can probably wait a little bit, but I'm kind of just earmarking, like, this Portable Hole has the Investigator's name on it, basically. So this turn is more like setting myself up for expectations in the future. I would have done what you did and just play out the 1/3, but just noting that I think this Investigator has to go. And the other thing, of course, is just like, 2/1 can stick around and double block. I was saying the power and toughness doesn't matter that much, and it doesn't, but it might matter for a double block later or something like that. All right, so they play a Displacer Beast. They scry at the bottom. We draw one of our unicorns. Not that that's unlikely. We have 5 of them. We jam the Sylvan Shepherd, which makes a lot of sense. You want to get your enabler down for the unicorn in before you play the unicorn. And they play a Volo. Okay, so you're under the pressure here, under the gun. So what do you like doing this turn?
So we have a couple of options. One is Land Troubadour.
Mm-hmm.
We have Unicorn and Jam. I was thinking that Portable Hole A was too good for the Investigator, and B, something foreshadowing in the future, which we'll talk about, it could be used for something else. So I think I went with Unicorn Jam, and I did not cast the Portable Hole. But I wasn't sure about this decision. What would Alex do?
Interesting. So yeah, I like Unicorn. I like playing that here because it starts to grow, starts to get big, turns into a real threat. I would have, let's see what you did. Yeah. So you didn't cast the Portable Hole. I think I would cast the Portable Hole here. Because again, I've kind of earmarked that Investigators is going to be a problem at some point. Again, I don't think you're going to end the game in the next 3-4 turns, right? So like, if they're a land heavy hand, that thing's going to, or sorry, if they have a land heavy hand, this Investigator is going to do some work for them. But aside from that, since your goal is to get this Unicorn in, I kind of want to clear the board as best I can, right? So that they don't have a good double block. Where this Investigator, they might not want to use this for, the mana sink. They might actually just use it on a double block or something. My goal here, I think, is to make my Unicorn get in as best as possible. The other thing to consider is the less stats they have on board, or the fewer stats they have on board, the better your Hear Something on watches get, because they have fewer options to make good blocks that can play around a pump spell or something. So I think that, and the final point here that would make me want to cast the Portable Hole is you're a bit tight on mana right now, right? You don't have like the most expensive hand in the world, but I think like wasting this mana might come back to bite you in a later turn, just because you might draw another spell here. You won't be able to double spell in another turn or something like that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I would have Portable Hold. We move on. They play you find a cursed idol. They make a goblin. They scry. All right, that's fine.
All right, so a couple options again.
Yeah.
Troubadour, Dawnbringer Cleric, pump the Unicorn, and then jam. Dawnbringer Cleric, Portable Hole, and then jam. I think what I went with was this. Dawnbringer Cleric, I pumped, and then I jammed.
Yeah, so I kind of I like your play given your position of what you did last turn, but I would have really liked to play the Troubadour this turn, right? Use all your mana, and if you had Portable Hold, I'm not to go back and say, well, if you did this line of events, but just to highlight something here. If we had used that mana to get this Investigator off the board, this Unicorn would be a 4/3, right? Because, we wouldn't be playing the Dawnbringer Cleric, we're playing the Troubadour instead, but we'd still have a good attack, because they either chump with the Goblin. I don't think they're double blocking. I don't think they're blocking on Volo. That doesn't seem that good. So what we could have done is kind of had the best of both worlds in the sense of we attack the Unicorn as a 4/3, get an attack, and get to spend all our mana this turn. So I like your play given the situation, but yeah, I think I would have been happier if the Troubadour could have come down this turn.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And we go on with this game a little further. They play a Basilisk. Yikes, that's pretty bad for you at this point.
Pretty bad. Yeah,
double Basilisk.
So here, I was trying to figure out what the heck to do. You can Portable Hole, but I mean, I figured my thoughts were you're going to have to deal with one of these Basilisks anyways. Let's just jam and let them trade off, and then cast the Circle of the Moon Druid. Or the Troubadour. I wasn't going to get the trigger from the Troubadour, so I went with the Circle of the Moon Druid. What would you have done there? I think again,
I would have done the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you do the same thing there is fine. I agree. You if you want to play this on the turn, you get the trigger. So it guarantees a trigger, but also when I was just talking about being mana efficient, right? But if you draw a land, you can cast both Troubadour and Portable Hole in the same turn, so it doesn't matter. So I think I like your line of attack because it's not getting any better at this point, I don't think, when you've used all your interaction. And just jam another creature, which isn't a great winning line. I don't think you're high to win the game because your opponents put up quite the board here. But all right, and then they cast another giant thing. And
so
this is
you
marked this before. This is Nathan wanted to point this out as a learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make it. What happened here, Nathan?
So, I guess in my experience or my mental shortcut, all tokens have a 0 CMC. Mm-hmm. So my plan was to Portable Hole their, whatever big thing they made a copy of. Apparently that doesn't work. Alex, why not?
Yeah, so this is a little rules quirk, just for those maybe not familiar. So tokens, if that made off of, cards that make tokens, they generally have a mana value of 0. You can Portable Hole tokens. If the token is a token copy of something, like this is with Volo, it retains the same CMC, or mana value, to use the Zoomer term here. So unfortunately, you can't Portable Hole something made off of Volo, and you learn that the hard way. But we have to take our learn the school of hard knocks, as it were.
Yeah. And this game's over. We don't have to keep going after this.
Sweet, yeah.
It kind of crushes me. So
fair enough, as Vola tends to do if it survives. All right, let's take a look at the next game.
So this game is very similar. I'm pretty mana tight at the beginning, and I have a lot of sequencing that I wasn't sure which order to do things. And I'd love to just run it by you and see, again, what would Alex have done.
Sweet, yeah, we'll do the same thing. We'll just scrub through and tell me when to stop, basically. So you draw a Dawnbringer Cleric. They play a Hexblade.
Yeah, here we are again. Turn 2. Do you Dawnbringer Cleric? You have a Unicorn in hand. Do you Dawnbringer Cleric? And that can just, perpetually chump the Hex. Do you wait and hear something you watch on it? Do you just take the 2 damage? You have 2 Unicorns in hand. I wasn't sure what to do.
So I think, in this spot, kind of contrasting the last game, I don't think I would play the Dawnbringer Cleric here because you have 2 Unicorns in hand, right? So, if you can get, if Dawnbringer Cleric can essentially say, I put 2 counters on a creature, that's pretty meaningful. This Dawnbringer Cleric isn't attacking, right? It's just, not getting through a 2/2 or anything your opponent plays, right? So basically you're just saying, this is a life gain spell, essentially, comes down, gains some life on blocks, and actually gains some life from the ability. So I don't actually think Dawnbringer Cleric is that relevant here, right? And I also don't think I would hear something on watch either, at least not in the context of this game and this hand. So my thoughts here are, I could get aggroed out by a black-green deck if they just draw large creatures. I could see that happening, right? Where in that spot you'd want to kill the 2-drop, or you want to play the Dawnbringer Cleric so that you can block. But I think that I would kind of take my chances here and just not cast anything. I don't think out of a black-green deck I need to kill their 2-drop with my removal spell, right? If this was a red-black deck or a red-white deck, sure, you definitely kill their 2-drop. But I think here's something I watch is better left leveraged later on a combat or something, or killing an owlbear, just a more important creature, right? So I think I would take a little bit of an unintuitive play of just don't cast anything here, because I don't think either of these spells actually meaningfully contribute to you winning here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so they go Evolving Wilds. They play a Basilisk. That pesky Basilisk coming back to haunt you.
I love them when they're on my side.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So here, turn 3.
Yeah.
Unicorn, or do you Priest of Ancient Lore to make sure that you draw a card, or you hang on to the lore to give the life counter? You're going to gain life, so put a counter on the Unicorn. What would Alex do here?
Yeah, so similarly to what you were saying before, or what I was saying before, where it's you would like all of your life gain triggers to go off, I would just wait here. The thing that would make me not want to wait and just cast the Priest right away is if I had a 4-drop in hand that I really needed to cast, or I really wanted to cast. And I don't think Troubadour is quite that level of card. It's not I don't know, an Orcus or something. I'm let's get this 5/3 flyer in play, right? It's Troubadour's nice, but Troubadour also doesn't get, better unless you have other lands, so it'd be a few turns before that gets going. So I think just get the one that gets triggers in play. You kind of want the Unicorn in play early so you can start accruing value. And I just don't think, the Priest is always going to draw you a card no matter what. And maybe that changes if you have a few more expensive cards where you're all 5 and 6 drops and you're just I need to hit land drops. But even still, you can just make that choice next turn. We're just okay, cast Priest next turn if I've missed my land drop. So they attack, which is kind of interesting, kind of surprising actually. Yeah. That means they're probably gonna play a bigger creature.
The question here: Do you trade for the Basilisk? You're gonna have to get through it eventually. I opted not to. I thought next turn I'm going to Priest. I'm gonna have a 4/3. I'll just jam back for more damage that I'm taking.
Yeah.
What did you do here?
So I think because you have Priest and a few ways to gain life off, Troubadour if you get land drops. I guess that's not even that relevant. So I guess the question comes down to, do you care a lot about getting in 4 points next turn? Because if this attack says to me they're going to play a big creature next turn this turn that can brick the 3/2, right? I don't think they would have attacked otherwise, right? So if you want to get in for 4 damage, I think it's just pretty likely that you'll be able to, given the sizing of creatures in this set at this mana cost. I think you could just take the damage because it's 1 point. Who really cares? And not trade off, and then maybe trade off later. I think that you're best just to take this here and see what happens, right? If you let's see what happens. Let's just instead of talking hypotheticals, actually see what the next thing comes down is. Yeah. So they play a 2/4 blocker, right? And now you can just go Priest of Ancient Lore, trigger the Unicorn, get in for an attack. And I do like that better than casting the Unicorn here, because now that you've missed another land drop, I think it's good to try to dig to land drops, because, instead of playing this Unicorn and then hoping to do this next turn, I think you want to start hitting land drops 4, 5, 6. So I agree with this Priest here. And then you get an attack for 4 too, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, this is the first missed land drop, just FYI.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Okay. And then both me and my opponent are mana constrained, so I think they do nothing here.
Yeah. A bit sad on your side, because your deck is, ostensibly trying to beat down. They're putting up pretty decent defenses here, right? You've got a nice Death Touch creature. They've got a 2/4 blocker. You're
I think they add the Shambling Ghast, maybe.
Let's see. Yeah, they play a Shambling Ghast, even worse. Yeah, the aggro deck's worst nightmare. So you're in this position where you're starting to, I don't want to say fall apart, but I think you need to kind of almost, at least in my position here, if I was sitting in Nathan's seat, I would recalibrate a little bit, where you're shifting to, all right, I got to get in some damage, I got to beat down to, you know what, my opponent's kind of done a really good job of making sure I can't attack. So I think in this position here, I'm curious to hear if these thoughts cross your mind at all. I kind of go to, okay, you know what, I'm not getting into the ground anymore. I think now I just want to focus on building out a board and then winning eventually, right? You've got this Troubadour, which pays you off for going long. Green Dragon can, get in some beats in the air. They're not really putting up any threats or anything. I would still like to win the game, right? I think I would still like to win the game as quick as possible so that they don't draw their Skeletal Swarm or their Westgate Region or whatever. But I think we have to slow it down a little bit and just start building out the board so we can take advantage of this here, something I'm watching, this plate armor. We're not getting in. The big picture thing is we're not getting in versus this board anymore. So let's just focus on developing the board.
Which is, I cast the Unicorn, but we had a couple of choices there. You could have Portable Hold the Basilisk and jammed.
Yeah.
You could have, and then cast our own Basilisk. I went with just adding more to the board, though.
Yeah, which I think is what I would do there, too. Kind of like I was saying there, I don't think I would have Portable Hold the Basilisk, because I don't think that gives you that good of an attack, really. Right, I think it's better just to build the board, then use the removal spell on the Basilisk after you've gotten everything on the board. Yeah, you look over.
Besides, I guess even if I Portable Hold the Basilisk and I attack, they block with a Ghast and kill my Priest of Ancient Lore. So
yeah, that's not great for you. So you miss another land drop, unfortunately. But like I said, we're slowing down the game. It actually is not that relevant here. No attacks doesn't make any sense. Once again, they're not doing much.
Next turn when you can add the Shepherd.
Let's see. Okay, so we have some options here. Let's see what Nathan does. I'm curious.
So a couple options. Portable Hole again with the Basilisk. You could play the plate armor just to get it on the board. You could jam with the Sylvan Shepherd and see what the blocks are and use something on Watch to pump. I don't know. I went with plate armor, though.
Yeah, I think going with my original, the logic I was saying a minute ago, I think I would just get my creatures on board here. I guess you can make the argument that if you get plate armor on the board, you can just start sending each turn and spending mana, making sure they they're either taking a giant hit or they have to trade off and make some blocks. I think that's not super great though, because if they draw an interaction spell, then they set you back a little bit. Basically, you want kind of to reiterate, you want to build the board and then kind of suit up or cast here or something on Watch. Building out the board is better for you on all fronts, just so you can cast your augmentation cards and then suit up. It's much worse for you if they you cast your augmentation cards, start suiting things up, and then they draw a removal spell on your suited up creature or whatever. It's just that gives them a lot of time. Whereas if you just build up the board and then do the thing, well, the cards are kind of on the table at that point, so doesn't matter as much.
You would have Basilisk then?
I would have Basilisk there, yeah. Okay. I think just play more creatures. Because the other thing to consider, let's just pause quickly. If you play Basilisk, you can actually start pecking in for a point, right? If you go Basilisk, they might just trade off a Shambling Ghast. That's fine too, right? But these Basilisks, they don't really want to trade with them, right? They don't want to put their Hexblade would be fine, whatever. But they don't really want to trade with this. They don't really want to trade the Basilisk. So the other advantage to getting the Basilisk down is they can actually get in a little bit of sneaky damage, right?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, play a Drider. Not a huge problem.
Yeah, we're falling behind on mana here. We finally draw our fourth land.
Draw the land, which is nice, and we go for...
So, yeah.
we go for the action play here.
I went for the action. I Portable Hold the Basilisk. I suit up on the Shepherd and jam to pump up the Unicorns. So a couple questions here. A, would you have done that line? B, would you have Troubadoured and just sat? C, jamming with the Shepherd, would you have also jammed with the Unicorns as well?
Great question. Yeah, so let's dial this back. I wouldn't have done what you did. I think just playing the Troubadour is better. Making sure you get the Scry trigger, hit more lands is important, so you can start double spelling, cast your Green Dragon. I think I would have Troubadoured there. But the other thing is, if you do play the plate armor, or equip the plate armor, I don't think you attack this turn, because you jam a 5/6 into a 4/3 and a 2/4, and that's just not really a good attack for you, because you trade your 5/6 for the 4/3. I guess it's not terrible, actually. I take that back. It's not a... I wouldn't take umbrage with this play based on that, because I think this is a fine trade when you can just suit up your plate armor on anything else and they all become threats. Like, you're okay trading, making kind of bad attacks, quote unquote bad attacks, if everything is a threat, right? But if you're committing to attacking with the Sylvan Shepherd, yeah, I would attack with these guys too, because at least then they don't have a clean block on the Sylvan Shepherd, and if they want to double block, your Unicorns get in. So I think if you were to attack with Shepherd, attack with these guys too.
Okay. Yeah, I think my logic was they have to double block it, and then if I jammed with the Unicorns, they could just chump with the Ghast and kill my Priest. So
yeah, that's true. But then they don't have a Ghast, and Priest is like the least important creature here,
it's
and you still yeah.
Okay.
All right, we move on, and they play a Circle at the Dream Dream. So they're not really doing anything, and now you're actually kind of in a good spot, right? Like you can just start jamming. Yeah,
I think the game. Yeah, I don't think we have to go much further. Basically, here I turn the corner, I use the plate armor and the Green Dragon to win the game. There was actually a mistake right there. If you wanted to flag that, if you go back to my double attack with the Unicorn, I don't know if you want to go into this detail or not. My logic was, if I play, so I jam with both Unicorns and they block, they double block one of them. And my logic was, if I play you something on watch to pump up everything, they can't kill the Priest of the Ancient Lord. But I didn't do the combat math on the Unicorn, so the Ghast was able to pick off the Unicorn. So that's just another mistake there. I think that was just me not thinking through the combat math, not thinking ahead. So
gotcha. It's
not really wasted because I did kill an extra creature there, but could have been better.
Yeah. All right, yeah, fair enough. You seem to, I guess we take over the game from here. Like you said, not that much interesting from here. But I guess what an interesting takeaway from this game is, when your deck is designed to do a thing, you're like aggressive, and your opponent puts up, really good defense for what your opponent did in the first few turns, play all these defensive creatures. I think it can be a little bit mentally taxing, almost like some psychic damage when you're like all these little small things, like I can't get an attack here, I'm missing land drops, it's like just things aren't going my way, right? I think it's good a lot of times to just kind of zoom out, both from okay, you know what, things aren't going my way, that's all right, let's continue on perspective, but also from a strategic perspective, when things aren't going your way from a game player's perspective, as in like my game pieces are not matching up well with my opponent's game pieces, like it's good to zoom out and go, can I actually attack through this board? Or should I just like chill a little bit and develop my board, right? And, I think a lot of players in your position here would have gone like, jam all, something on watch, like, who cares? Like, if math is for blockers, let them figure it out, basically. But I think you took the, I would have, tactically done things a little bit differently than you did, we were talking about. But I do like your overall approach of like, all right, let's just like chill for a bit. I can't make attacks here. Let's just play some more creatures out.
That's Alex's way of saying, I would have done stuff better, but your line was still okay.
Well,
you didn't take the A, but you took like the C line. All right, that's fine.
Well, Nathan, we've been doing this long enough that if nothing, I'm nothing. If nothing, I'm a diplomat, right?
I like the brutal honesty. You chose the second best or third best line. Here's the best line. Yeah.
You didn't take the seventh best line, which is a good thing. All right, well, that's all we have for gameplay today. Which I like these little snippets of gameplay. They're pretty cool. It's illustrating some small concepts. Why don't I say, Nathan, you take the season home, and we'll get to some Nathan takeaways.
Perfect.
All right, Nathan, like I said, bring us home on this season finale. We're going to go over some of Nathan's wins, some of Nathan's losses here, some takeaways, big picture Nathan takeaways for the season. Hopefully, of course, our hope is that they can apply for to some of you at home, the watcher. And like I said at the top of the show, we're going to take a look at some of Nathan's previous takeaways from other seasons to see if he's if he's retained those and is putting those to good use in his drafts even today, or maybe he's gotten back into some bad habits. So Nathan, why don't you lead us off here?
one of the things I like to do is I do a lot of sports, and I talked about, the reason for this series is I like to get coached, and you learn a lot of tips and tricks as you learn to coach. Hey, don't do this, or focus on this tiny thing, or focus on these tiny details before you get to the advanced topics. And so as you move to the advanced topics, it's very easy to lose sight of those little lessons and those little things to improve, so that when you are wondering why things are going awry, you need to go back to the fundamentals. And so there's a lot of lessons that I've learned in previous seasons that I'd like to see if I was incorporating into this season, and give myself a pro or a con, or check mark or an X, and then address them moving forward as we move to, I think it's Innistrad, right?
Yep, Innistrad in just a few weeks actually, so that should be exciting.
Right. Exciting. It'll be my inaugural visit there. I think a lot of people like Innistrad, so it'll be fun. So, all right, season 1, we had 5 takeaways. Number 1, check on your colors during or at the end of pack 1. Mm-hmm. And so that was because I was going astray or trying to speculate on too many things, or I thought it was a certain color pair when in reality the cards I had weren't strong enough, and I should be looking at what the open signal was. I think for the last 2 seasons, that's something that I've done a good job of addressing and identifying my lane and incorporating.
Yeah, I would definitely give you a thumbs up on that. I think, I'm thinking back to our call time drafts. I think this might have even been like the big takeaway from our very first episode, where, this just, for you and for anybody at home, like, this is really important, I think. Just like, after your pack 1's done, just be like, hold on a second, am I really the colors I think I am? Like, I first picked a good black card, but have I taken a black card since then? Or like, I'm seeing these good green cards late, like, maybe I should move into this, right? Like, really just evaluate how strongly do I feel about the colors I currently have, and what is the latter pack of the pack telling me, right? So I think you've done that really well, especially in the drafts that you've shown me.
All right, check mark on that one.
Yep.
Number 2, check on your 2-drop slot. I think originally my curves were slated too much to the fat end, or at least the 3s and 4s. I think I've done a good job making sure that I have a more robust lower end of the curve.
Agree. Yep.
That'll, I just want to keep that one as a side as we talk about this season, but I'm going to give myself a check mark for that one. Number 3, take a screenshot of your deck to look at tough spots. And I think, Alex, you have no data points on this because it all happens on my end. I have not been doing that. I have just assuming I thought I knew what was in my deck, or been too lazy to open up the 17 lands. I think now is a good time to do an aside, just each season we like to present, what my win-loss percentage was, and, how are we scoring out of the details. Unfortunately, my 17 lands app on my computer wasn't syncing a lot of the times, and I wasn't aware of it, and I wasn't diligent enough to make sure that it was being uploaded correctly. So a lot of my 17 lands data is missing this season, which is unfortunate because we can't do an objective analysis of that. I think going back to Kaldheim, I was in around the 60% win rate. I think in Strixhaven, I was really kind of poor. I think I was like 52 or 53%. This season was definitely going better than Strixhaven, but I don't think it was quite as strong as I was in Kaldheim. Mm-hmm. So you guys are just going to have to take me on my word. It's somewhere in that range, but unfortunately we don't have the data for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Going back to taking a screenshot, I give myself an X on that one. No check mark. So that's something that's very easy I can improve on doing moving forward. Number 4, simplify the board when you're short on removal, or make good trades as a form of removal. I think that's something that I definitely took to heart. I think we had covered that a couple times this season in gameplay. Was I was trying to trade or reduce the board. I think I give myself a half a check mark for that. I was taking it, I was doing it, but potentially for the wrong situations, and we'll cover that in season 3 takeaways.
Sweet.
Thoughts on that one? Anything?
Yeah, I think last week's episode when we were focused on combat tricks, and we're talking about when to attack, when not to attack, when to make trades. Then we covered a lot about that in that episode. If you want to get a little bit of a deeper dive into that, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to hear what you have to say when we get to your takeaways from this season in a few seconds.
No spoilers. All right, number 5, don't be afraid to avoid a bad color, but don't be afraid to get into it for the right reasons. And so I think that one was, very salient for this format. I don't know that I avoided blue early enough in the season, and I was getting into it for the wrong reasons. I was like, oh, there's a blue dragon here. There's, these high-end things, or what's the one, the 4-5 mana that gets a spell back if it rolls the dice? Like,
the Mind Sorcerer, yeah.
Yeah, like I was getting, those are like, oh, these are the value cards that I really love, but those don't work in this format. Eventually, it was figured out like you can do blue, and I was still getting into it then. So I think I give myself an X on this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, for this format, it's pretty, this is one of the more salient examples of, when it's, you should stay out of a color, or when two colors or a color is much better than the rest and you should really try to get into it. But it's really tough, I would say. Like, if there's one thing that Magic players love, it's binary answers. Just being like, yes or no, yeah, you should get into blue, you shouldn't get into blue, right? And it's never as easy as that, right? Just today, I was on stream, I was drafting blue twice in a row, and I trophied with both decks. And, I had people coming in stream being like, oh, blue's good now? Like, you like blue? What made you change your mind about blue, right? It's like, well, I don't want to first pick a blue comment or anything, but like, when I have a really solid, base color, let's say it's black, and then like I get, Genie Windseer last pick, and there's no other like clearly open color, well, I'm gonna put those Genie Windseers in like my good uncommon in my deck, you know what I mean? So it's like it never shut yourself off of the option, and I think the way you put it is really, really good, where it's like, don't be afraid to draft this color. Just because it's a bad color, but also take into account that you should bias away from it and don't try to get into it if it's bad. I think the way you put it here is actually really, really good, and honestly, that's a good piece of advice for anybody in any format where there's like a color that's clearly weaker than the other colors.
Yeah, I think again, I was getting into it for the wrong reasons, just drawn to the wrong cards, and eventually, when the format is shaken out, I've drafted a couple blue decks, but with the quote unquote right cards.
Right, yeah. I think one of the things is, like, it's good to be in tune with that, like, early on and know exactly how, like, the next format we have, green might be the worst color, but it's really important to understand the magnitude of how bad it is, right? Is it so bad that you want to steer away from it, or is it just, like, the worst color but still draftable, right? That's also a part of the puzzle that you have to kind of understand if you want to be, drafting optimally.
Yeah, sick home brags on the double trophy today, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, so that's actually a good segue. How do you know what the right cards are? So season 2, the big takeaway for me was really looking at the 17 lands data. Hey, what are the good cards? Like, what is actually winning when hand? What is winning when drawn? Like, how does that change? I'm gonna give myself an X on that. Didn't really do it. You were the one that brought up data and was like, hey, this is a good card. This is a bad card. Look at, what was it? Is it Vampire Hexmage in this?
Vampire
no, that's
Spawn?
the wrong card. Yeah, Vampire Hexmage is a completely different card. Yeah, like that one's actually a secretly good card. Or hey, did you know that the number one winning red common was Price of Loyalty? I think is what you said back in one of our previous episodes. So I'm gonna give myself an X on this. I didn't do it. I need to look at that. The data is gonna help you learn quicker. So
yeah, I think one of the things too is it doesn't have to be like a super deep dive. One of the best things I think you can use 17 lands for, I mean, by all means, like Nathan, you're a data guy, you like diving into data, right? So if you have 20 minutes to sit down and dive into the color pairs and like what's working in each color pair, that's fantastic. But one of the best things I think about 17 lands that you can do is kind of just get like a pulse check, right? Where you're just like, oh, that number seems really high, or oh, that number seems really low, right? Those are the most important things. If you've only got 5 minutes, just go, hey, that doesn't line up with my intuition. Maybe I can talk to Alex, or maybe I can, look on, a Channel Fireball article, or check on a Discord or something where it's like, what do people think about this card? Am I way too low or way too high on it? Right? Kind of just putting the cards that are, you might be higher on or lower on than you should be on your radar. I think that's one of the best things that 17 lands can do.
Yeah. And so just to recap there, that's 6 things, right? From seasons 1 and season 2. I don't have anything else for season 2. That was 2 check marks, 2 X's, and 2 half check marks. So like, look, there's opportunity for me to relearn the lessons I already learned to improve moving forward.
Yeah, totally.
So what are the new things? All right, the new things, season 3. Number 1, don't simplify the board. When you have combat tricks, play out your other things first. Yeah. And so this is kind of at odds with what we said before, which is simplify the board if you have removal. But what we ran into a lot of this format is I had combat tricks. Look at the you hear something on watch or things today. That borders as removal, but it also borders as a combat trick, right? You were gave the example of you really want to go wide and pump your board, like put stuff on the board first. Yeah. And so I think that is something I need to really. Like, do I want to simplify here or do I not? What would be the reasons for that? And
here's just like a very simple, and this is oversimplistic probably, But make trade if you're the aggressor. This is only applying to when you're the person who wants to attack. Obviously, when you're the person who wants to block, you're gonna block. But if you want to attack, you should offer trades if they either make your attacks better next turn, right? Or you just don't have any way to get through their board, right? Where you think they're gonna start playing a bunch of creatures. I need to just I don't have removal, I don't have combat tricks in my deck, I'm just a bunch of creatures. I need to just be trading so my other creatures get in, right? If you have combat tricks in your deck, or if you have removal spells in your deck, and an abundance of either of those, it benefits you to keep your creatures on board, not trade off, because then your combat tricks and your removal spells can actually do something. They can leverage your creatures, you can kill their things, you can use your combat tricks. The simplify the board when you're attacking is a lot more for the, I don't actually have a very good way of getting through these creatures. My best way of getting through these creatures are trading my creatures for their creatures and hoping my big creatures get in, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And so, thinking about it from two different lenses, I think will help me moving forward.
Sweet.
All right. So again, I have a number 2 this season is also a little at odds with what we learned in previous seasons, but not every set focuses on 2-drops. So I think you've talked about this quite a bit, whereas in this particular set, you do want 2-drops, but not too many 2-drops.
Yeah, totally. And this is one of those things where it's it's very, very set dependent, right? Where you're gonna, I don't know if I can I don't know if there's the takeaway is what you just said, where it's some sets are like this, some sets are like that. There's next set might be you want all the 2-drops in the world, or next set might be you really want to play only the good 2-drops, really. I guess the broadly applicable takeaway is every set demands different things, right? Sure. And whether that, and in every department, right? Whether that be how many removal spells you want to play, how many 2-drops you want to play, how many 6-drops you want to play. This was a set, AFR was a set that made me want to play an abnormal number of 6 and 5 drops compared to what I would usually play, because the 6 and 5 drops were really, really good, right? So I would just say going into a new set, there's you kind of get stuck in these heuristics sometimes, where it's oh, in my limited deck I want 15 creatures and 8 spells, and those kind of things, where the things that you kind of picked up from content or just listening to other good players give their generalities, right? But every set's a reset, right? You can be in the same ballpark, but always fine-tuning and adjusting is really important.
I like that. Every set's a reset. It's good. All right. And the third one, I think you brought up in one of our recordings today. I don't think it's actually the one that's going to make it online, but wait on modal spells until you're forced to use them. Which is that came with the example of one of the things we were talking about, when to cast the Dawnbringer Cleric. The longer you have, the more information you have, which mode to use on the Dawnbringer Cleric. And it wasn't in any of the videos that it's covered today. I had situations where I ran it out a little earlier, and then literally the next turn they cast a Warlock class. I'm great.
Yeah, whoops, yeah. Very basic example of this, the most simple example of this I can think of is the flip lands, or the double face lands that we saw in Zendikar and Kaldheim, where this comes up way more in constructed, but you want to wait usually as long as possible to play those lands, because you don't really, once you pick the side, you're stuck with that side, right? But this applies to a lot of modal spells, right? If you don't have a great reason to cast the modal spell, and it's not even the reason might just be oh, I have to play my 3-drop, even though it's a modal spell, just play my 3-drop because I have to curve out here. But if given the option to have a little bit of legroom, wait to cast your modal spell, because you never know when you need to destroy an enchantment, like you said, or you never know when you need to make a creature unblockable with the bounce spell in a set, right? So that's just something to think about.
Yep. And so those are my 3 takeaways for season 3. So far I think we've been averaging about 3 a season, which is good.
Yeah.
I think anything more than that is, as demonstrated, I can't even incorporate the 3 a season we have. So I think any more than that, it will be just meaningless.
Yeah, I think overall for the season, we didn't do a lot of draft overview. We did 2 episodes of draft review and 2 episodes of gameplay. For 2 reasons, I think. One, AFR kind of, there's no means solved. I don't think any format truly ever gets solved by the end. But I think that for you were drafting it to what I would consider to be pretty good, pretty well. There wasn't man, Nathan fumbled this draft again, It was really, I think you did a really good job. And plus AFR is a bit of a set that's Well, okay, I don't think this gives as much value to somebody watching a draft. Like, sure, it's good to see what another player would do, but I do think that gameplay-wise, it's actually pretty robust, and I actually think one of the things that, some people have stopped playing the format at this point, I think that the gameplay is actually pretty interesting, and I think people that stopped playing the format are missing out on the good gameplay now that every gameplay isn't, how do I just play around price of loyalty, you're not facing red-black all the time. And from that perspective, I think for us, I think the gameplay offered us some really, really interesting looks at, just like we did today, small little snippets, but also some big picture concepts I think we're going to be able to take to the next set.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the format as it matured. I think this is one of those ones I'll pick up a booster box of and put on my shelf so that, someday down the line my friends and I can revisit. I mean, it's not like the number one for me, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, it was fine. I think I'll give it overall, I give it a solid B, I think.
Yeah,
which is honestly that's a lot for me coming from somebody who really dislikes sets with color imbalance. I think B is really good.
Coming from this draft connoisseur.
Yeah, wants everything to be exactly correct. And yeah. Anyways, Nathan, thank you once again for an amazing season, and thank you to everybody out there who's watched and stayed with us for this journey. We'll be back once again when Strahd rolls around, and as always, I hope you all enjoyed this. Nathan, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
See ya.